Hi guys, I'm going to try to record this again. I had uploaded yesterday my labor and delivery story, but it had somehow messed up and only uploaded like 45 seconds of the first video, and it got erased off my phone somehow. I'm thinking when one of the kids was playing with my phone. Sorry, I'm going to have to be quiet because the baby. But I figured I'd just retell it and re-upload. Now, everything started, I think, around 8 o'clock that morning on the 25th. And it was calm. It was okay. And I went over my birth plan again with Nick. Let him know that I still didn't want any medication. I wanted to be able to move around. I wanted to wait as long as possible before I'm going in the hospital. Wanted him to remind me about the delayed cord clamping if I was kind of out of it because of the pain when we got to the hospital. Wanted him to let the nurses know that I wanted to have him on me right away. Everything went on. Went for a walk. Went to Walmart. Walked around there for a little bit. Sorry. Walked around there for a little bit. And then later that day, I think it was around 4 o'clock, we went to Walmart to go walk around again. And Nick was also going to pay our phone bills, and we were going to pick up something to eat, which we were going to do subs. And we got there, and things were getting pretty intense. It wasn't too bad. I was able to walk around. I was still talking to him. It wasn't any issue. It was just more than what I was going through the rest of the week. Then we got home. I think it was around 6:30, 7 o'clock when we got home. I started making food. I started making our subs, getting the kids in bed. Kirsten had already gone to bed. Victor was having trouble sleeping, so he stayed up for a little while. And then things started progressing throughout the night. I think around 10 o'clock after we ate and everything, it started getting pretty intense, so I hopped in the shower to try to help. And then, at, I think it was around midnight, I was just laying in bed, just in my robe and kind of rocking through contractions. And it was getting pretty intense. I had Nick pushing on my back to make sure that the pressure was going away, because I go through intense back labor through every one of my labors. And he had actually brought me an ice cream cone. I ate my ice cream cone, and things started getting more intense, and I told him that I thought it was it. And this was around like 2, because we went and took another shower, and he pressed on my back and had hot water on my back during contractions. We hopped out, and I think it was around 2:30. And when we got out, I had called my friend that was supposed to watch the kids, and she had not answered. And I was wondering if she was going to. So I ended up calling my mom, asking if she would be able to take the kids, and we started getting them ready. She said yes, and her and Nick were back and forth on whether she was going to watch them at the hospital or she was going to watch them at her place, which place we were going to drop them off at. And we decided that she was going to come to the hospital. As we were getting ready, I was having to run around the house trying to get everything. I even forgot my birthing ball to bring it up to the hospital, which it wasn't that bad. I was actually lucky sitting more than anything. It felt like I was squatting on my ball. It wasn't pumped up enough, I guess. But as we were getting ready, I was standing at my dresser and my water broke. And of course I went straight into my bathroom, because that's the tile part of my house. The rest is carpet. And it wasn't anything big. It wasn't a gush or anything. It was just little bits. Even Nick was asking me if I peed myself. And I had to tell him where everything was, where I wanted everything, the things I needed to add to my hospital bag, the things that I didn't need to add to my hospital bag, where everything was for the kids that I had set aside. In the process, I'm back and forth with my mom, trying to make sure that she's going to come up to the hospital, because we didn't think I was going to make it to her place and then the hospital. And then I think it was around 3:30 that we headed out, and we're a half-hour drive from the hospital.
Well, not to worry, Eli. I will be just fine.
And we head out. Nick rolls down the windows. He cranks the music and just has me relaxed as possible during the contractions. It was pretty amazing. And I had quite a few on the way there, but I just had to breathe through them. There was just a lot of pressure. We had already had the car seat installed in the car, so that wasn't an issue. Or at least his base, the regular car seat, we didn't have. Nick threw that in the trunk on the way there because the baby wasn't in it. And then I made him actually go back out of the car before we left and put it in the back seat. I didn't know how safe it was banging around in the trunk. And we headed to the hospital. When we got there, my mom was already there. And the place where you park at my hospital, you have to actually be buzzed in to the parking garage for labor and delivery. We got buzzed in, we got out of the car, got the kids out of the car. I couldn't even walk halfway through the parking garage without throwing up. My contractions got to the point where the pain made me throw up. And then my mom had gone and got me a wheelchair, so it was easier for me because walking was making me more sick. We got upstairs, and I think it was 4:05 when I messaged my mom, which is when they checked me. So it only took about 5 minutes to get upstairs. And we had got in there, let them know that my water broke and everything. I had to rock through some contractions while they were asking me questions on when it broke and when everything started, what my pain level was and everything. And I kept feeling like I needed to get sick, so it was really hard for me to get in my gown and get the belly band on to hold the monitors. So one of the nurses helped me out. And then when they checked me, it shocked us all because we thought I was maybe about halfway there, which is what we were hoping for when we went into the hospital. We wanted to at least be halfway there. And I was actually an 8. So I got there and I was 2 centimeters away from being able to push. And it was actually pretty amazing. I got there and at 4:05 I was checked and I was an 8. And I was checked within 5 minutes of being there, so it wasn't too long. It wasn't like I was in the hospital for a long time. And then they rushed around, they hurried me into my delivery room. Because my hospital, the delivery room and the recovery room are separate. They don't have you in a labor and delivery suite anymore. And they had wheeled me in there. Of course, they were shoving clipboards in my face left and right. And at that time, me and Nick were not married. So I was having to let them know that I consented to him signing all my forms and giving my social and giving all my allergies and everything. And it was difficult because none of the nurses wanted to listen. They kept trying to shove them back at me when I was giving permission for him to do everything because I couldn't. At that point, I wanted to focus on breathing through everything, calming down, and not having to feel as much. I wanted to put my mind out of it so that I didn't feel as much. And they weren't listening with that. They were being very stubborn. And then the lady that did my IV, she was very, very slow with it. She procrastinated a lot. She procrastinated a lot. When we got there, it was 4:05. It took her, I believe, until 4:25 to get my IV in my hand. And she tried from the second we went into my labor and delivery room. And that made me very angry because she was trying to do it through contractions so I wouldn't feel the needle. And it was making me mad because I told her, just do it. I'm not afraid of needles. I have tattoos covering my body. I really don't care.
It's not a social problem. I'm afraid she's schizophrenic.
And
She's 11 with an
she finally got the IV in, and she starts yelling at me, saying my veins aren't perfect, they're not straight. They're diagonal across my hand instead of straight up and down. And I was just pushing it off, and then my blood pressure started skyrocketing to dangerous levels because of everything. And I'm sorry about the lighting, it keeps trying to reset so it's whited out instead of yellow. My light in my room is pretty yellow. But it skyrocketed to 210 over 115, and they were very, very scared of it because it can send you into, I believe, cardiac arrest if it's too high. And even Nick was getting worried about everything, so they had me turn on my side, which was very difficult because I was already 9 centimeters. It felt like he was crowning when he wasn't. And they turned me on my side, showed me different breathing exercises. It still wasn't helping. And I let them know that I felt like I had to push. They turned me on my back, and of course I was 10 centimeters. They start rushing people in, and they start calling the doctor over and over again because they didn't think things were going to progress this quickly. And they get in there, they're still trying to tell me to have different breathing so that my blood pressure will go down. His heart rate was good, his pressures and everything were good, which was amazing, because with Victor, my second son, my 2-year-old, we had a problem with his heart rate during my contractions. It kept jumping, and the doctor ended up getting in there, and I started to push. I ended up doing 2 pushes, and then he was out, but he had meconium, so they had to rush him right to the table. I wasn't able to do the delayed cord clamping, and I wasn't able to do skin to skin right away. I wanted to do it as soon as he came out. They had him diapered and everything before he was put on my chest, which I didn't want. I wanted him directly out of me onto me. That way it could get his temperature up, because all my kids have trouble regulating their temperature, severe trouble, and I've needed to keep them warm. And I wanted to develop that nursing bond within the first half hour. But they had got him cleaned up, and they had given the eye antibiotic. Or no, they hadn't given the eye antibiotics yet. They did that after my skin to skin. But they had got him cleaned up, suctioned out, and everything to make sure that he didn't swallow anything. And then they brought him over to me. I was able to hold him, but my bleeding was getting bad. It wasn't clotting up like it should have been. So they ended up having me pass him on to someone, and my mom was the only one able to. She was in the room now. The boys were too. And Nick ended up having the boys, so my mom ended up taking Davy. And she held him, and they were making sure I was okay. And then they handed him back to me and kept him nice and warm. And I was in the labor and delivery room for a good hour and a half, almost 2 hours after delivery. And while I was in there, they of course made me get up and go to the bathroom, which was perfectly fine. He had nursed for a good hour while we were down there, which was amazing. He was a champ nurser from the second he started. We're still nursing to this day, and he's 5 weeks old and a little chunky butt now. He's already gained 3 pounds. Last time he was weighed, he was 10 pounds, 3 ounces, and he was born 7'1". He was 7 pounds, 1 ounce, 21 inches long, and he was born at 4:39 a.m. And when we got up to our room, my cramping was pretty bad because of the after labor contractions. They say it gets worse after every kid, and I definitely believe them. I didn't really feel them with Kier's, and then with Victor, they were pretty strong, but not where I couldn't handle it. They had me on ibuprofen and I was fine. And then with him, they even gave me morphine and it didn't work. It calmed the rest of my body, but it didn't work getting rid of the afterbirth contractions. And they still were worried about my blood pressure and bleeding for the first 24 hours because neither one of them were calming down. My blood pressure stayed skyrocketed for the first 24 hours, almost 36 hours. It almost lasted into the day we went home, which was Easter, which was the 27th. I had him on the 26th at 4:39 in the morning. And they kept an eye on him. Nothing was really wrong. And then we had gone home on Easter in the evening because they said he was good. His bilirubin was good. All his tests were good. He passed his hearing test. He passed his newborn screening. So everything was fine. He was circumcised that day, though, so it was kind of difficult on us because they wouldn't take off the bandage. We had to wait 24 hours to do it.
What? You always pretend that I'm not amazing because we both know that I am. Look, just ask her to back off.
But we had to wait 24 hours to, which they had us do it at home, and they said during his circumcision he was a bleeder. He would not stop bleeding, and the doctors have recommended a circumcision with all of my kids because, TMI, fast forward like 10 seconds so you don't have to hear this if you don't want to. But all of my kids are well endowed when they're born, and they're afraid that their diaper is going to pinch them, apparently. That's how it was explained to me with my oldest. And they suggest circumcision so it doesn't cause issues later on, I guess. I don't know. But we have done circumcision with all 3 of our boys, and it's never been an issue. And I know it can be a controversial topic. Please do not comment on my video telling me that it is a controversial topic and that it is something that shouldn't be done to my kids. It is my choice. I am their parent. But we had come home. They had me take the bandage off the next day. I waited over the 24 hours just in case. And when taking the bandage off, he actually ended up bleeding a little more than he should have. I couldn't get it to stop. So I ended